Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rollin with my homies. I am your host, Santina Muha. Thank you so much for being here today with us at Outside in Theater. And remember to subscribe below as you watch. Okay, I am so excited to have my friend here today. My homie, my guest. She is an actor. She is a model. She is a storyteller. She's just got cool vibes. Please, everybody, welcome to the show, Miriam Blanco. Yay! I'm always the only one that's clapping. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the show. I'm loving the leopard print. It's giving me Jersey vibes, and you know I love that. So what's going on? The last time I saw you was my birthday in May. How has everything been since then? You've been working? What have you been doing?
I've been doing so many things. I feel like after I saw you, I started booking a lot of work.
Oh, yes, we love to hear that.
I think I told you I was learning to drive at the time. So I learned. I got my license. Yeah, it all happened super, super fast. But yeah, I got my license. I bought a car the next day. And I've been like zooming around LA.
Okay, what kind of car did you buy?
I got a RAV4. I had been doing this like research every time I Ubered somewhere. I was always assessing like, how's this gonna work? And I was, I'm like, no, not this one, not this one. But yeah, the RAV4. It's a good car.
Okay, so and now with the RAV4, how do you get in? What do you like? Put your wheelchair in, or what do you do?
So, as we have discussed and you've seen, I can stand. So, so
I have to say how surreal it is to have a friend who's in a wheelchair. And so then what do you do?
So I have forearm crutches that I typically will keep in the trunk. And so I'll open up the trunk space and the chair is light enough, and I got it. I really wanted an SUV so that I didn't have to break the chair down to put it inside the car. So yeah, I can like lift the chair up, put it in the back, and then I take the crutches and I walk to the front seat and I put the crutches typically just in the passenger seat or behind if someone else is riding with me. And yeah, it's super, super easy.
That's great. That's so great. And what about driving? How do you feel about, what took you so long to get your driver's license? Because you're older than 17.
Yeah. So
I know shade, by the way. I'm just curious because I, by the way, used to drive, and ever since I moved to LA, I kind of haven't been driving here. I'm scared. So tell me. So I drove for years in New Jersey.
So driving is scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. No. So my parents like really ostracized me as like a kid. Like I could have learned then. Mm-hmm. I'm exactly who I am. Nothing changed. Okay, some small things changed, but it was when I moved. So I moved here from New York. In New York City, you don't need to drive.
No.
It's actually, I think it would be more of a hassle. Like my sister had her car there for a few months, and there was always the stress of like parking and owning a car in New York. I moved to LA with the goal to learn to drive, and that was back in 2013.
Uh-huh.
And as you can see, it took a really long time, but there were a lot of like moving parts. Like I got to LA and I thought I'm going to get my career set first. And at the time I was working in advertising, and I was like kind of fresh out of college. So I was killing myself trying to make this advertising career happen. And then I'm like, okay, I need to go to the doctor now because I knew I was sort of overdue for some like follow-up things. Mm-hmm. My condition had worsened, and I had seen a lot of doctors that didn't really give me no one had new information. Mm-hmm. And so moving out here, I had seen that UCLA had a Center for Cerebral Palsy, which is what I was originally diagnosed with, which is not what I have. So that became a whole thing. So I just kept coming across these setbacks that just put driving like further, like lower priority. You know, we had to figure out, what do I have? How is this going to work? And so it took a few years to figure out, like, I have a rare disease, and that's why it had been misdiagnosed, because you have to be diagnosed through genetic test, and it just was a whole thing. So after it became less of a thing, I started kind of figuring out my life, and it was really COVID that made me like, I need to do this. And I feel like there were always things in the way, like my doctor went on maternity leave while in the middle of the paperwork. So I was not getting any closer to driving while she was having a baby, but yeah, eventually we got there. So.
Oh my God. Okay. So now talk to me about this misdiagnosis journey, because that's very interesting. So at what age were you when they told you that you had cerebral palsy?
1. I was learning how to walk, and my parents were like, this is abnormal. They had 2 children at that point. So they're like, this is very strange. So they took me in and went through all these tests, and I had been diagnosed with CP then.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then what, did you feel like you had CP? Like, did you know other people with cerebral palsy, or how did you feel about it?
I didn't know anyone else with it. I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with other people with disabilities as a kid. I feel like my only experience with them was like when I went to a hospital, like a specialized hospital.
Yeah.
And then it looked like I felt like I didn't deserve to be there, because I'm like, there's next to nothing wrong with me, you know, like I can feed myself, I can think clearly, I go to school, like nothing else. And that was actually an indicator for my case being atypical, which every doctor said, but no one changed the diagnosis. Everyone looked at it.
Let's look into this, or if perchance it's something else. Nobody.
And get this, Santina, I went to doctors in New York, Philadelphia, DC, like the big guns, you know, the people who study this kind of stuff. And everyone was just like, that's weird, you know? Okay, well, let's put her in some braces. And
Wait, okay, so then what is the actual name of what you have?
So I have a genetic disease called hereditary spastic paraplegia type 3A.
Of course, yes.
Duh.
Right. So you have that, and then what is, you know, like, why is it important to know that that's what you have versus CP? Are there reasons that, you know, like, why do you need to know that?
This changed my life, okay? Because CP is the result of a brain injury. It happens. Your body is how it is as a result of brain damage.
Okay. See, I didn't really necessarily know that. And but that brain damage can happen in utero, correct?
Yeah. So you're only at risk of it at like post, I think once you're like 2 or even 1, like you're not at risk of ever getting it, because it has to be in those like really early developmental stages.
Got it.
That something happens. And yeah, they've MRI'd my brain so many times, like there has to be something, and there's nothing, because there's nothing happened in my brain.
Let me ask you a question, a little bit of a diversion, but what do you do while you're in the MRI? Do you have anything that you do to like get through it? Because I've had a bunch of MRIs too, and they're long and they're like loud, right? I usually sing like a Meatloaf song or something to myself, because it's like Paradise by the Dashboard Light is like a very long song. And by the end of it, I feel like I've really taken up a chunk of my time. What do you usually do in there?
Okay, I haven't had like too many in my adulthood.
Oh, okay.
But I did have one. So I went through this whole like re-diagnosis thing like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, they wanted to do my brain plus all parts of my spine. And the guy was like, so we can either take some breaks and this will take like 4 hours, or we can do it straight through and it'll take like 3. And I was like, 3, let's just do it all the way through. Okay. And I didn't know at the time. He was like, we can hook up your phone if you want it. My phone had died on the way to the MRI because I didn't know I could listen to music while I was in there.
Now, I mean, now it's...
When I was doing it back at Children's Hospital when I was 6, that was not an option.
Right. Yes, right.
But yeah, at the time, honestly, okay, so I'm a pretty active member in my church, and I had to speak the following Sunday. And I remember as soon as I like hit the MRI bed, I was like, I guess it's a good time to think about Jesus. Like, I guess so that's what I did for 3 hours. I think I fell asleep, honestly.
Okay.
But it started out as I was I'm like, I'm going to be productive during this time.
Write a speech?
I'm clearly very exhausted thinking about Jesus or something, because it did not last that long. I came out of there and the guy was like, these are the clearest scans I've ever seen. Like, what were you doing? I was like, I think I fell asleep.
Okay, good for you. It's so hard to fall asleep there. Just like, wow, 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 wow. It's so loud, right? I try to make up songs to the beat too. But now they can feed your music. And I also had my best friend Cindy come with me a few times and sit out there and talk to me. But we would get in trouble because I would try to like answer her in sign language with my hand, and they were like, you guys can't stop. You have to stop. You're moving. And we got in trouble. But that's many years ago. Okay, so I want to get back to this talk now. So they were doing the MRIs, and your life is about to change when you find out. So tell me more.
So there's this group of diseases, these hereditary spastic paraplegias, and they're really hard to diagnose. But there have been like several of them that they've found specifically linked to a particular gene. So genetic testing may or may not reveal them. Anyway, this is like the whole briefing I was given by the neurogeneticist. And it turns out they found it. They found my specific disease. It's actually, maybe I shouldn't say that because there aren't enough cases in the world for them to label it pathogenic, even though it's like, there's enough that they'll tell you it probably is this, but it's still like too rare that it may not be. But the best thing about it is it's terrible, but it's great for me. For my mental health, because it's actually degenerative. And I was getting worse, which had I had CP and I was getting worse, that was the mystery. That was the medical mystery, was why was I getting so bad if I had this like brain injury as an infant, you know? I had not been given that prognosis. I wasn't prepared for that, you know? But as I got older, like I was walking throughout high school, like up till the middle of high school is when I started using the chair. I was coming home crying because it was getting so hard. And I think part of it, I was crying because I'm like, I am such a wuss. I can't walk around high school. And then I went to college, and as I saw, I was able to do less and less things, and I was not prepared for that because as far as I knew, I didn't have a condition that justified it, you know?
Yeah, sometimes just knowing, you know, why you're upset about something or why your body is doing something, because the wondering takes up a lot of the mental energy that you need to use to just like be a person in the world.
Totally.
So what was making you what was getting worse? Were you getting tired? Was it painful? What was making you not be able to walk?
Fatigue, pain. It was just it was just overusing things that didn't want to work anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess like the biology behind it is like the neurons are getting sick, and it's in my legs because those strands are longer. And so there's like it's just good to know. I know this is going to sound so terrible to a lot of people. It's good to know that it's insidious. It's going to do what it's going to do regardless of what I do, you know?
Yeah. Well,
like knowing that I don't have any control over it. It's going to happen. It's not my fault, you know?
It is good to know. Yeah. Like, I know that everyone's trying to help when something's going on and people are like, think positive. And you're like, do you really think that I have created this problem in my, yeah, that drives me. That's like more of a California thing, I think, than a New Jersey thing. But, you know, and God bless everybody who feels that way. And there's something to it. There's definitely something to having a positive attitude, you know, for sure. But you cannot reverse a physical diagnosis just by thinking positive. I mean, you would have to be really good at thinking positive. Like, really good at it. Okay, so then mystery solved. And now you're just living with it.
I'm living with it. Only option, you know.
How often do you stand? How often do you walk now these days?
So I try to walk regularly, but I've also not been mad at myself for doing it less because it's hard. I mean, every day I'm up and down, but it's just becoming like smaller and smaller trips. Mm-hmm. And so for as long as I can, I plan to like transfer in, like load up and transfer into my car as I have been. And that requires a small walk. And I try and walk around my apartment as much as I can, but throughout COVID, I had injured myself because I had gone from using the wheelchair a ton outside my home to always being home. Then I was trying to walk around more. But it was like if you decide you're going to run a marathon tomorrow, you know, but you've been running a mile once a month.
Right.
You know? And so I had injured myself, so I had to stay off my foot. And that sort of got me in this like bad habit. But yeah, I try and like be on my feet as much as I can, but really not. I think injuring myself taught me just like, you cannot, you know, and you'll figure it out.
So when I go to the airport and they ask me, can you take a few steps? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? They're thinking about you. They're thinking about people like you.
I know.
Okay, no, but it's good to know, because then I don't have to be so defensive about it. I can just be like, no, I can't, knowing that there are people who can, because I think sometimes some of us are like, what a stupid question. If I could walk, why wouldn't I be walking? But it's not, but you know, it's good to know that, you know, because then they'll see someone like you show up at the airplane and maybe get up and walk to your seat, and they're like, what? I thought we weren't supposed to. So it must be confusing for these poor able-bodied people. I don't feel bad for them, but it must be, but it is helpful to know why they're even asking that question. That to someone like me sounds nuts. And maybe to someone like you, for them to assume that you can't might feel like, why do they assume I can't walk? And I'm like, why do they assume I can? So it's kind of not fair. So it's good to know this.
I will say, Santina, I do think it's quite presumptuous of someone to approach a person in a chair like, can you walk? You know, like, why would you ever?
I don't know. I do hate it, but I think at the time I'm asked that question the most is in an airport setting, and I think it's because, or like a theme park. I've been asked that question, and I think it's because those are places where people use wheelchairs, but can get up if they have to. Whereas, like, you know, if you're at a restaurant or something, maybe there's no reason to ask that. I don't know. I'm just trying to make excuses for people like I have all my life, I guess. I
do
don't
the same. I do the same.
give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess. But okay, good. Next time somebody asks me that, I'm gonna be like, who do I look like? Miriam Blanco? They won't know what the hell that means. But I'll know and I'll feel better about it. Okay, cool. So now you said you've been working a lot since I've seen you, which is super cool. So I want to know, have you been doing wheelchair roles or like non-wheelchair? How does that work with your acting or with your work?
I think most things I've booked have been specifically for a wheelchair user. I'm like, so it's funny. I went to acting class the first like couple of years I was taking acting classes. I never used my chair because the acting studio was upstairs. So I used my crutches, and the first time it was like the first day of school I had gone to, the first day of school in high school that I was using the wheelchair. It was like that all over again the day I decided like I need to do class in my wheelchair because that's how it's going to be. Like I am more comfortable I can't walk those distances. Like I can only walk very short distances on my crutches. It's unrealistic. So I go to the studio, I have my wheelchair with me. I'm like, this feels like high school all over again. Everyone is so concerned. Miriam, what happened? I don't know what to say.
You're like surprised. Okay. And then what do you say? You just tell them this has been just, what do you say?
Well, fortunately, actors in there from like 20 to 40 have more tact than, teenagers. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get the same rundown of questions.
Right.
But it was actually, I'm glad this came up. My teacher had asked me at the end of the scene, she was like, so we usually don't see you in your chair, like, was it a choice for the scene? And I
great question.
I was like, actually it was. I realized I spent a lot of energy focusing on standing. And if I cannot do that, like this is a really physically demanding thing for me to stand here in a scene where if I just made the character somewhat like myself, I would be in my wheelchair at this point, Yeah. The only reason I wasn't like this last week is because I can't get my wheelchair up the stairs. So just decided I was going to deal with it this week. And so from then on, I feel like my scene started to go smoother as I just took that element of like the physicality, like I was putting that on myself, in addition to all the demands of being an actor, Yeah,
I hope that somebody who is, has something going on in their body that maybe is pushing them towards having to use a wheelchair watches this, because some people think of it as like it's a sign of weakness or whatever. And look what you just said, your scene started to get better once you were in the chair. And it was because, you could focus on what you had to focus on and not worry about the physicality of it. And so there's like being in a wheelchair, that's why we don't like, wheelchair users don't like when people say wheelchair bound, because it's like, I'm not like Hannibal Lecter, right? Unless I'm at the airport getting taken in the chair they put us in. But I'm not bound in the chair. It's a vehicle. It affords me my independence. It gives me my independence. If I didn't have it, then I'd be bound to my bed or bound to wherever I was. This is like the thing which allows me to not be bound, right? Yeah,
totally.
Do that. Well, I'm so glad. Can you tell us any of the stuff you've worked on?
I've done, well, I feel like I've done mostly like print modeling stuff.
Ooh la la.
I did a thing for Ulta.
Oh, that's so cool.
It'll come out in the holidays.
Oh my gosh. Okay, my mom is gonna love to hear that. She loves Ulta. Did you get to keep anything?
got to keep the clothes.
Oh, that's okay. We love that. Good.
Yeah, it was fancy. It was they like cut and dyed my hair, and we had this whole thing. I kept telling my friends I was going in for this makeover.
So what was it? What were you advertising? Just
Salon stuff. I think just like general. They did my hair. Okay, listen to this. I had this epiphany after I'd done that whole thing. In high school, I thought I had amazing hair. Like I had gone through some bad phases. Like I really wanted curly hair when I was a kid. I convinced my mom to let me get a perm when I was like 11. By 13, I was like, that was the worst decision of my life. It had grown out. I got my first like teenager haircut, and then I was like, this is it. I have the best hair. And I thought that all the way through high school. And then at the very end of high school, I don't know if they did this at your high school, we had like senior mock awards, like senior superlatives, like best dressed, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So they had like a best hair category. And I'm like, I really should win it, but I just feel like I'm not outspoken enough to, you
you didn't want to campaign for it.
I flew under the radar in high school. That was my thing. Just stay quiet and slightly invisible. So, graduated high school with no recognition for my hair, which was just not even a nomination, but I really feel like I didn't even deserve to expect it, So I went on living my life knowing I had great hair. Fast forward to this summer when Ulta is paying me all this money because I have the best hair. I'm like, you know what? Every high schooler needs to hear this. You don't need validation from a bunch of 17-year-olds. Just keep doing what you think you're good at. And one day you're going to make a lot of money for it. That's how I feel.
That's right. And you do have really great hair. It looks very like soft and shiny right now. So that's good. Yeah. That's the dream. Doing a hair ad is like the dream. So you grew up in the suburbs. Well, you started out in the suburbs of DC. Then you went to New York City. No.
Went to college.
First you went to college in Utah, right? And then you went to New York City, and now you're in LA. So why did you choose Utah for college?
Because I'm Mormon.
Oh, okay, because you're Mormon. So what was living in Utah like?
Weird. I was actually like just talking about this with some friends, how I don't know what Utah is like. I've never lived in like Utah. I went to BYU and I practically stayed on campus the whole time because I didn't drive and I had no desire to explore the great outdoors of Utah. I'm not an outdoorsy person. Sure. Nothing sounded accessible to me. It just felt like a lot of work, and I was there for school. So I only know college.
Right. And Brigham Young is the reason I know that college even at all is because that girl who was on The Real World who went to that college, and that was like her thing. So that she was like a Mormon from BYU, right? So then, what are you doing? Petting the dog?
He got into gym stuff, so I'm, as he tears things up, I'm sort of grabbing it as he's in my reach.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to talk about the dog in a minute because now I want to do that. But first, I want to hear about your journey. So you were at BYU.
Yes.
And what was college? Did you like college? Did you live in a dorm? What was that like?
I did not like college. I just felt like I didn't belong. I didn't fit in. I say all these things not even knowing what that means. I just know that my general feeling was discomfort. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. Once I got into the advertising program, I felt like I found my people. There was a friend I had who I had friends before this, but it was like getting down to the end of my time at BYU. I'd gotten into this program and I go sit, we're in this orientation program or orientation for the ad creative track. And I go in and sit next to this one girl. They told us we had to partner with, like, I was an art director, had to partner up with a writer, and me and this girl just look at each other. Turns out she's not Mormon. She was from New York. It was like all these things that it's like, what are you doing here? You know? And I kind of felt the same about myself, except for I am Mormon. But I like this whole time at BYU, I was sort of asking myself, what am I doing here? You know? Okay. And to find a friend who was also like that, I just feel like my experience in that program, I found all these people who kind of together, we felt like, okay, now we feel like we belong here because we're part of this thing. And
well, you're good at that then, because that's how we met. I mean, by looking at each other across the room and being like, oh yeah, okay, that's my people. So you must have like an aura about you.
I do kind of feel like I tend to find somebody in like a sea of people. I feel really uncomfortable in a lot of situations, but no one ever knows it about me because I feel like I find an anchor in those situations that I'm like, you're real. And if you're here, then I can be here too, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I felt that about you the first time I saw you, that you were like, I'm not sure about this.
I was really not sure about that.
Yeah, it was an event. It was like a disability event. And I was like, I've never seen you. And you were in a room full of people that I had seen before, you know? And so like, I feel like as much as I don't want to admit that we all know each other, because we're like, we don't all know each other, people in wheelchairs, but it's like, well, I know a lot of them. So then when I saw you, I was like, wait, how come I don't know her? And then, then we just started talking, and that was it. And now we're friends. So you must be putting out, at least you know how to emit that, like, you know, you have like a bat signal that you send out. Yeah, so that's good to do. So you found your people at BYU finally, and then what made you move to New York after that?
I wanted to come to California, but I have a job in New York. So
the job doing what?
It was at an ad agency that does like experiential stuff. And I had a really bad year that like health stuff I told you, like I had been getting worse and I put off going to the doctors because no one could give me any answers. Yeah. And I was like doing this really rigorous program in school, and after what was supposed to be like my senior year of like killing myself through school, I couldn't do anymore. And I felt like most of my classmates, they had gotten job offers or internship offers, and I was behind. And I wasn't sure if I was actually going to finish. I had gone home. I went to see more doctors. It was really bad. And then I feel like I'm really proud of myself for that part of my life, because I felt like I was given no hope. And I was the one who pulled myself out of like the darkness to say, you should like finish it. You have this whole life ahead of you. You have this great career that you won't know what happens unless you go finish. And so I did. I went back to school, I finished, and I ended up getting this job at this agency in New York. And my sisters were living in New York at the time, and a bunch of friends from college. So it just seemed like a no-brainer. And I'm really glad I went to New York, because I think I needed it. Like, it empowered me. It's like they say you make it there, you can make it anywhere, which I just laughed at. I'm like, but a lot of people who make it here don't try anywhere else.
But I get what they mean by that, because it's like a different energy, out there.
Yeah. I think like everything about New York is really hard. So walking away from that, I'm like, truly, if you can do that, you've learned to make so many compromises and sacrifices, and you've got to have a hell of a work ethic. Like, it's just you have to survive in that city, and most people end up doing more than that. So
yeah, and I mean, and especially you know, when you're using a wheelchair, it's also hard to survive in New York City because it's not very accessible. Forget about it if it rains. Really forget about it if it snows. I mean, all they do is go into the sidewalks, into the ramps, into the cutouts. It's like, forget about it, right? I mean, how did you deal?
Oh man. So I came up with really funny routes to get places that I knew. You have to stick to streets that are well traveled. Don't go down side streets. I worked in Soho and it was like, don't go zigzagging through the neighborhood, taking the, roads less traveled. You had to go down the roads that everyone was going down because those were going to be clean. Those were going to have the snow cleaned from them. I had a lot of funny experiences. I remember getting there. It was the spring when I had moved there. And I remember like there was a street, I was trying to get to my office and I couldn't find a curb I could go off of. And I'm like, how am I'm supposed to go around until I find someone. What if I never find a curb cut? Yes. There's a guy walking down the street. So I said, hey, this is not my personality, Santina. I'm not yelling at everyone walking down the street. I really do my own thing.
What you gotta do.
But there was no one else. I didn't know how else to get off the sidewalk. And the guy, I was like, hey, could you help me? And he's like, yeah, of course. And that was usually the response. So that was how I did things in New York. I honestly, at first I thought, there's part of me that used to think, if you can't do it by yourself, don't do it. It's irresponsible. And when I moved to New York, I'm like, it's irresponsible to try to do everything by yourself. You're not going to get it done. It was the only way I was able to live in New York was by all the random people who helped me daily. And as much as I think that says a lot about how low priority people with disabilities can be for city initiatives and everything that goes into that. But at the same time, I feel like my situation made me I just feel like my overall humanity like quadrupled in the time I lived in New York because I needed to connect to other people in order to live there,
Yeah, and it says a lot about New Yorkers too, because they have this weird bad reputation. And I'm like, no, New Yorkers are nice. If they don't like your outfit, they're not just gonna tell you that they do, but they're not gonna like spit on you and push it. Yeah, but I'm from the East Coast, so I get it. I get why people think maybe that, people from the East Coast or from New York are like harsh, but they're just like not bullshit artists, right? Is overall. But they are always very helpful. And I mean, because I never lived there in New York, but I interned there and I worked there. And yeah, I had plenty of people help me in all kinds of weird situations as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about. How about hailing a cab? Did you ever hail a cab from a wheelchair?
No.
Yeah, because they do not like to stop.
I would go to, when I lived in Hell's Kitchen, I went to Port Authority because I knew they had like a line of standing cabs out there. I went to where I knew they had standing cabs. So that was my cab hack. I wasn't gonna, I think I tried to once maybe, and it was a bad experience.
Yeah, I've had to ask other people to hail cabs for me. One time it was Mary Louise Parker from Weeds. It ended up being her, and we shared the cab. She was really nice. She was like, "Here, you have it." I said, "No, it's your cab." She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Penn Station." She goes, "Oh, I'm headed that way. Let's share." She put my wheelchair in the trunk because she had just had her baby, and then she told me like the gossip about like another celebrity had like whatever, it was a whole thing. And we shared the cab, she paid for it. It was a really good experience, but it turned into a good experience because of her. But again, I was out there for like 10 minutes and no cabs would stop. And then she came out of a store and went like this. And it was like, Sex in the City style where a cab just magically appeared. And I was like, and the first thing I said to her was, how did you do that? And then when she turned around, I realized who it was. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. But also, how did you do that? Because I want to go home. You know what I mean? So good luck hailing a cab. But now I guess there's Ubers and Lyfts in New York. Hailing a cab might be, do they still do that? I don't even know.
I don't know. I haven't been to the city in a while, actually.
Yeah,
so
the city, right. Well, I know, that's what I call it too. And then you live in LA. For how many years have you lived here?
I first moved here in 2013.
Okay, cool. And what do you think about LA life?
I love it here. I think though I came with a very specific mindset, which was if it's hard, no one told you to do this. So it was like I put every single hardship I have faced in this city on me. It was my decision. I didn't have a job. I didn't have people who were wanting me here. This was like 100% my own volition to come to LA. I was going to accept everything that came with it. And I had to remind myself of that recently because I was like, attitude check, Miriam. You decided to do this. It may have been 9 years ago, but
So we've been here about the same amount of time. I didn't even realize that. So did you leave your job in New York, or was there a catalyst, or what made you decide, like, why then?
So this is cheesy, but I felt like I had done what I went to New York to do. Like I had figured it out. It kind of became too easy. Like I mean, New York will never be easy, but I think there was just this satisfaction of like, I figured out how to live in a place that I could not fathom the year before I moved there. I didn't know how I was supposed to make that work. And I thought I was supposed to have this great advertising career. I had to go live in New York. I didn't think that was possible, but I did it. So after a year, I'm like, it just kind of felt like what next,
Yeah. Okay. And then you were like, well, let me go to LA because that was the thing you wanted to do.
Yeah. I really wanted to learn how to drive. That was a big part of it. I was like, I'm never going to learn to drive living in New York City. I think I should move to LA. And so I did.
And you're just like happy that you did it.
Yeah. Everything
on your own? No family? Your sisters are still back east?
They are. So the two that were in New York with me at the time, they stayed and then eventually left years later. But yeah, I came out on my own. I knew a couple people that lived around like the area, but no one I was really close with. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of just me doing my own thing.
Are you still the only person in your family out here?
Yeah.
How often do you see your family?
Some too often. Just kidding. My mom works for Alaska, or she worked for Alaska Airlines and she retired.
Oh,
flight benefits. Ooh. So she can come whenever she feels like it. Okay. But it's fine. Like my mom and I have a pretty good relationship. My dad and I think our relationship is best 3,000 miles apart. So I see him, I don't know, a couple times a year. And then I have a lot of siblings and I just see them when I see them.
How did your parents feel about you moving so far away? Because they're back where, in DC area?
Yeah.
So how did they feel about that?
They're apprehensive about everything I do because they don't know if I can do it on my own.
Because of the disability or just because of...
Because of disability. I promise you, if it were any of my other siblings, they wouldn't care.
Okay.
That's how it's been my life. Like, everyone else has this unearned trust, yet, me. But I think they liked that I have extended family on the West Coast, and I think they liked that I was going to be closer to them, and they knew they'd be able to visit whenever they wanted to. So I think at first it was like, you're doing what? And then they realized like, we'd rather visit LA than NYC anyways. So yeah, that's how that happened.
All in your siblings, are you the youngest, the middle, the oldest?
Share the middle with 3 others.
No excuse. It's disability then. You think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not in a special position in my family.
Right. It's not like you're the baby or something. No.
It's like me and all my sister, like all of us middle children, we're the ones who've like gone and done stuff with our lives. And it's really funny because like we were brought into this world not in a position to succeed.
Well, we're coming toward the end of the show already, but we cannot stop without meeting the third person who's been in this interview, which is Huey.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, we love a dog on this show. Are you kidding me? So Huey, when you first got him, you were sort of a little bit apprehensive, right? Because he's your first dog.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't know, maybe other people feel that way.
Yeah. So Huey, I'll show you Huey. Let's see if we can. Huey, can you go on camera here? There he is.
He's a big boy.
He's very big. So I wanted a dog that I could eventually train to help me as a service dog. Mm-hmm. And since I am, like we talked about, I am still ambulatory. And every time I stand up is honestly a fall risk. All my doctors will tell me that constantly. And when I was younger, I was all about taking the risk. But, now I'm like, you could break something and that could be super serious. Anyways, so I had done a lot of research on like mobility aid dogs. And I really thought like that's what I needed in my life. But then comes the challenge of he's a big guy, like you saw. So it wasn't like I was just going to take this little hamster-sized dog and like raise that puppy. I was going to raise this big puppy. He is around 70 pounds right now. Sorry, you can probably hear him. He's recovering from kennel cough. Poor guy. But he, that a lot of my family members, I shouldn't say a lot. Some of my family members, when I told them I was going to get the dog, they were super apprehensive. Like literally, I can't believe they said this. I can't believe people say these things. The first words out of their mouths were, how are you going to take care of that? Don't you need to walk him? I can't walk. Why would I not be able to walk a dog? And these were things that I honestly was like, I think like, congratulations to me, because I don't think that way. I never think about, if I want to do something, the first thing I think about is not like what my disability, like what obstacles are presented. I think like wanting to do something, like why do you need to do it? And
because there's probably, it sounds like there's nothing in your life that you really wanted to do that you couldn't figure out how to do. So why would you think that, why start now?
I think for a lot of people, like it's scary. I don't know what it's like to have an able body, I don't know what it's like to wake up in the morning and jump out of bed and just be able to do everything you see on TV or whatever, But what I do know is how to figure out how to do the things I want to do. And which I think is a skill set in and of itself, that like, no matter what physical obstacle is presented, how to get over, around, under it, whatever the route is. And so with the dog, all I could see were the benefits. And it's like, I will figure out like what this guy is going to do for me far outweighs anything that I'm going to have to go through like in the process, which I feel like that's been my experience so far. And he's not even helping me right now.
Right. Yeah. How did you convince them, or did you just do it? What did you do?
Um, I just did it. I didn't need, the only reason I like talked to my dad about it was because I was going to bring him home over Christmas. And I was basically just saying like, hey, I'm bringing a dog home. Is it okay if we stay with you? And it was honestly our conversation. If you remember, we had talked kind of when I was going through that decision-making process. I think at the time I had already found the dog, and I told the breeder I was coming. And so then like having my dad kind of shut me down, I hadn't expected that, but I also wasn't calling to ask permission. And I think you reminded me of that, of like all these things in your life that you like have these discussions with people about, like you're not asking them for their permission. It's not like you need their sign off. You don't need them to say it's a good idea. And I really just like, right. Yeah. Like my dad is not my landlord. My dad isn't like, he has no say in this.
Yeah, you're not like 5 years old anymore. Like, you can make your own decisions without your parents. I mean, I think I told you I had a similar situation with my big dog who I had, Rocco, who's since passed away. But Rocco was he was a shepherd mix. He was a huge dog. And my mom originally was like, you're not going to be able to take care of him. But that's because she originally couldn't take care of him because he was like pooping and the kid, he was a puppy and he was doing all these things and she couldn't keep up. But she didn't work from home. Like I worked from home. I had the time to put in, but she wasn't thinking of it that way, right? She was just thinking, well, if I can't do it, she definitely can't do it, right? So she brought the dog over one day to she's like, he's shit all over the house. You watch him, and then I have to bring him back to the place. And I just was like in love with this dog. And when she came back to get him, I locked her out of my house, and I was like, no, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it, and if it doesn't work out, then we can bring him back. But at least I need to try this because I love this dog. And yeah, he ended up being the best dog. Like probably top 5 dog anyone ever had in the whole world. He was just the coolest dog ever. He picked stuff up for me. I totally trained him how to do stuff for me, just like by myself. I didn't even have to go through a school or anything. Because I bet you feel similarly as me, where you don't want to go through the whole process because you probably don't want to take a dog away from somebody who might need it more than you. Do you feel like that?
Totally. I'm like, because those dogs go through a really rigorous selection process.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? This dog may never be great at ignoring some distractions.
Yeah.
And that's okay because I just need him to be, when we're at home, I just need him to be attentive to, we're standing, okay, I'm going to come make sure you don't fall.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that outside. I'm not walking around my neighborhood,
Right. Exactly. And I ended up having Rocco, and for years. And he was, like I said, I mean, if I dropped my mascara and it rolled under my dresser, he would come over and take his paw and like, with no formal training. And then my poor mom by the end was like, yeah, I mean, I guess he's a good dog. I'm like, you blew it, Ma. You blew it. This would have been the best. So I just cleaned up his shit that one day and knocked him away. But guess what? He never pooped in my place. Not one time after that. That was the last time he ever pooped inside. Unless he was sick. But honestly, even humans when they're sick sometimes. You can't blame him for that. But he never went in the house again. And he ended up being, like I said, some sort of like super dog. So I'm so happy that you were able to do that and that you have Huey. And I love dogs. I think that they're, I was actually talking today in therapy about how my dogs throughout my life seem to be the only thing in my life that really don't care at all that I'm in a wheel. Like I could get up tomorrow and Luciano, my dog, would just be like, cool, do you have any treats? Or like, what are we doing today? I mean, it just wouldn't faze him. He doesn't care. He's not worried about me. I love that about dogs. They're the only thing I think on this planet that aren't like, well, is everything okay? Or like, wow, that's so amazing. They don't care about it.
It's so funny. Dogs at the dog park, I feel like so humans, I feel like they feel like they have to tread lightly. They can't ask too much of you. They're not sure what you can and can't do. Dogs, bring you a ball, throw this, throw this, I'll go get it. And I'm like, you don't know if I can throw or if I can't. Yeah. But they just, it's exactly what you're saying. They don't care.
They don't care. And if you can't throw it, then they're going to like nuzzle up and do whatever they can to get what they need out of you. And they will adapt to you and you will adapt to them.
They will adapt to you.
Completely. No, totally. I know. It's the best. Yeah, we love them. We're at the end of the show. I mean, this always happens where I'm like, how did that happen? Because we just talked for an hour. Did you know that?
That's crazy, but
I know.
I do this with
anything that you want to tell what?
I said I do this with perfect strangers.
Do you have anything that you want to tell our viewers before we go? How, are you active on social media? Is there anything you want people to follow you on or watch you do, or any makeup products from Ulta you want them to buy?
I mean, I am on social media. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm not super interesting.
Well, where should they follow you?
At Miriam Blanco on Instagram.
Okay. MiriamBlanco.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot's happening this year, so exciting things I think are
good
in the future.
So everybody stay tuned and follow Miriam, and she says it's gonna happen because not really, you're not a bullshitter, which I like about you. And that's it. That's the end of our show. I have nothing to plug. Just keep following me on Instagram at Santina Muha. And thank you for joining us, everybody, today on Rolling with My Homies. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can follow me and Miriam as well. And then you can also follow Outside in Theater on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Outside in Theater. It's THTR Theater, to keep track of everything going on at Outside in here. And that's it, guys. Thank you, everybody. Please be safe. Protect yourselves. Protect those around you. Do the right thing. Don't believe everything you read on social media. Do research. And have fun. I mean, whatever else. I don't know, whatever else.